Welcome to the Independent Artist Podcast, sponsored by the National Association of Independent Artists.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. I'm Will Armstrong, and I'm a mixed media artist.
I'm Douglas Sigworth, glassblower. Join our conversations with professional working artists.
Well, Douglas, we're back from another busy weekend out on the road, and I'm actually still on the road. I'm hanging out here in a hotel room in Austin, Texas.
I see that.
The rest of the... Do you see it now? Can you see it a little bit better?
Look at that hat you got going, my friend. That's awesome.
All hat, no cattle. Man, I needed a little sunshade this past... for one of the days, I needed a little sunshade anyway.
Okay, at the last show, you're saying?
Yeah, I was down in Fiesta this past weekend.
Okay.
And, it's a 2-day show, Friday and Saturday. Ran into some of our good friends from the radio show and
awesome.
Or the podcast here, and talked to a couple of folks. But
yeah,
man, how are you doing? How was your weekend? You were up in Fort Worth.
I was in Fort Worth. We just walked in the door a couple days ago, and we're leaving again tomorrow. But I tell you, that feeling of walking in the door after being gone for 14 days, it sure feels good, even if it's fleeting. You know, even just a few minutes.
14.
Yeah,
well,
13.
14. I thought you flew home.
We did fly home. Then we were on the road
I don't
again.
Even remember.
I know it's been a long time on the road, and it's going to be another run here. We've got 2 shows back to back again. I don't recommend this for everyone, but we're making up for lost time, so don't hate us for loading it all up.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be hating on you. I think they understand.
Yeah.
I've made a couple, questionable business decisions along the way, and we'll get through it. You know,
that's right.
It all evens out in the end.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it's been good to be home for a few days, even though it's been nonstop running, just going. You know, I had some good conversations at the last show that people really enjoyed our conversation that we had, just the 2 of us, for the whole episode last time. So I kind of liked hearing that because it was a little bit of we've done it before, but not that many. So it's kind of good to hear that they don't get sick of hearing us talk the whole time.
Well, when we change it up a little bit, it's good to get the input, and you can always post input on the Facebook page or send us a private message or come talk to us at a show. I did talk to Reiko, which was cool.
Nice.
She says hello, sends her best. She was down in Fiesta in San Antonio as well.
Mm-hmm.
Man, nothing. It's funny because this is what I was talking to her about, and I was talking. My wife was showing at that show as well, and
cool.
We were down there and had some time to kill, and we're talking.
I think we can read between the lines on that one, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
All right. There was a lot of rain, on. It was just a 2-day show. It's a sweet show. And if it works for you, then there's nothing easier and more friendly. Some of these shows that we do, they make us feel good about what we do for a living. And this is one of them.
Yeah.
I couldn't think more highly of Barbara Hill and the show that she puts on down there for Fiesta.
I agree.
It did not work for me. I should have stayed, if I'm looking at it hindsight, I should have stayed home and just plowed through some work. But I was trying to make up for the Fort Worth sized hole in my schedule.
I hear you, man. Yeah, right.
So, sometimes those things that if you can get, I was thinking about this a lot while I was down there. It's like, if you don't get those tried and true things where you've got a following and it means a lot to you. It's like, I've been doing Fort Worth. I shouldn't even say this on the show, but I've been doing Fort Worth now for over 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
In a row.
Yeah.
How freaking lucky is that?
That is really, yeah.
Yeah. And this year, not just getting a double rejection on it with both bodies of work that I kicked them. It's like you establish these relationships and you establish these families that come and see you. And I had folks that were like, hey, we going to dinner? And, this is customers are like, we going to dinner again? They want to take you to his club. I went to this club with him one time, like a dinner dining club, not a club, but I went out with him and his wife. I mean, it's just, it's like you get, if you don't, you've been going to a show for so many different years that you almost end up with this weird, it's not FOMO as much as it is grief.
Absolutely. Like, well, there was another kind of another flip to that is, some people who've been trying to do shows of that, let's say a show that really works for a lot of people and we aspire to it being the thing we get into. And then they get in there like, I've got my golden ticket. And then it doesn't like work out for them. And they're like, geez, oh my God, what's going on here? And so, I mean, there's that other side.
This
Yeah.
carrot for so long. And it's like, well, I mean, the first year I did it, I didn't, well, no, I crushed it then too. I don't know.
It was your town. It was your town. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, you know, and I had so many different messages from so many different clients over the weekend. We're like, where are you? And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
you know, It's like, I don't want to say it didn't work out with my schedule. You know, my classic line, I'm like, I got the big fat no. And it was heartbreaking to me, but you know, weep for me, Argentina. I've been in for 10 years.
Right.
So
yeah. Right. So
time to stretch their legs and they wanted to see other people, Douglas.
They did.
That's what I got. they wanted to see other people.
But, I think it's not you. It's not you. It's them, right?
No, I unfortunately think it's me. Take a deep dark look in the mirror there. I'll see what I can do with my application to make myself irresistible. I'm going to look so pretty next year, Douglas. I'm going to try to put my prettiest self forward and dress up pretty for my app next year and see what it takes.
See what happens. Yeah.
Somebody was asking me, like, why aren't you? I mean, the worst part is like my like, you ever see that scene in the Terminator where it's, you know, years ago, and it's like going through the different responses. Somebody comes up to him, and it's like you can see from Terminator's view, and it's like the different responses. And when people come up to me, it's like, how come you're not in Fort Worth this year? And it's like, it just flashes red. Like, fuck you, asshole. Just can't.
Still raw, still hurts.
Oh, it does, man. I mean, it's funny that you do these shows. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, one of your personal favorites, and you don't get to go. It's just like you got this grief. Like I said, keep saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, how did you guys deal? How was the weather this year?
So the weather wasn't too bad until Sunday. Sunday was, and none of it was super stormy, which is sometimes the big challenge with doing that show. It was just cold, and it was, you know, light rain, and it kept the numbers away on Sunday. But I hope they came the other days. I mean, I know that was all across the board what I heard from people, their reactions to the show. You know, it's what it is. It's a show.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
And, you know, all shows are shows, you know. Sometimes it works really well for you and sometimes it doesn't. But it's my personal favorite. So if they call me next year and they're like, well, we want you to, you're invited, but you got to wear this narwhal onesie and do this. I'm like...
With the taps. I like the taps. You always come back to that one. Get the taps on the shoes.
Taps on my toes and get going.
Yeah.
Get rhythm. All right.
I guess the big thing the takeaway that I wanted to point out about this weekend was it was the first round of the Radtke's farewell tour. And it was just so sweet. I mean, those guys have been around forever. And, you know, everyone calls them Road Mom and Road Pa, and they're doing 2 shows this year, and then they're hanging up their hats. So there was a lot of goodbye weeping and selfies, and just really, I just want to send out a big congratulations to those guys, because they do such amazing work, and I'm just so happy to have them in my friendship family artist group.
Incredible people. I ran into met them at Coconut Grove for the first time, and I was kind of new-ish and was taking an elevator, and I bought myself a bottle of rum that I was going to try to share with some folks, see if I could run into some friends, and I recognized them from the road. So I was the proverbial chum with a bottle of rum, and we wound up drinking all night. So that was a great memory, and we've had so many. I've told the story about. Have I told the story about doing a T-shirt for Des Moines, doing the poster and the T-shirt?
Related to the Radtke's?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know this. No.
Okay. So I did the poster and the T-shirt, the promo stuff for Des Moines Arts Festival, one of my very favorites, another one of my very favorites there. And I had done the promo stuff for them, and they're coming around with the T-shirts, and she was standing there, and we've called her, like you just mentioned, we call her Road Mom.
Right.
And I introduced her as my road mom, and they misunderstood me, and they're like, "Where's the T-shirt for Mom?"
Oh, there you
And
go.
they're like, your mom is here? Absolutely. And they ran off to get her a t-shirt. It was like I feel like it was like the only one I'd seen with that design on it was like my image and like this really cool, like pinkish mauve color long sleeve t-shirt in the size that she wanted.
Okay.
So they ran off to get her one. Like, would you want one for your dad too? And I was like, my dad. I was like, that's not my dad. That's my stepdad. Like I called Steve my road stepdad and my road mom. So anyway, it was just a big joke when we told him what was going on. They're like, oh no, you can still have it.
That's incredible.
I still call him my good for nothing stepdad. He's a wonderful dude. I love those guys.
I do too.
Cheers, and I guess I'll see you on the road. I don't know what else are they doing.
So their last show of the year is coming up in June. It's Lakefront Festival of the Arts, and they're coming home. They're coming home to Wisconsin, where they both are from, and it's going to be their goodbye show. So if anyone out there is at Lakefront, be sure you stop by their booth, give them big hugs, and let them know how much they mean to you.
Absolutely, man! What a career.
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation on the road with Reiko and my wife. We were standing around talking about this particular topic because this past weekend, like has been discussed, I've been used to doing the Main Street Fort Worth Arts Festival. And that is a show where they give you all day Wednesday and even Tuesday night, I think, for some to set up. So you get Tuesday night and Wednesday to set up. You get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4-day show. That to me is ideal. And I was like, man, I feel like we've got a rainy day coming up on Sunday. I was like, that can cut the show in half and it doesn't give us the opportunity to sell. And I've talked on the show before about this, but they were like, Reiko was saying her favorite show is a show where you set up on Friday morning. And it has a Friday night kickoff, like a plaza. Or South Lake coming up, which I have never done, Art Fair on the Square. I'm getting ready to do that this coming weekend. Yeah. They do that with the Friday morning setup. Then they give you all day to set up. Friday night kickoff, 5 o'clock. That's her favorite. And meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do it. I want to, like, I'm such a baby about this anymore.
Like you want to spread it out, you're saying? You want enough time. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do fewer shows and I want these shows to be longer. It's just like a different, talking about business model again, but that is my particular favorite. Like I love having those 3. I like minimum I want 3 days anymore. Like I don't know what it is, but they were like, yeah, you're nuts. Thinking like, why would you want all these days away from home and all the stuff on the road? And I'm like, man, if I set up, I want more than 2 days,
Yeah. I mean, if you have the one shitty day because of weather, you want to have those other options for people to come and make you kind of bulletproof in the sense that there's enough of a window of time for them to still take in the show and buy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does make me crazy when there are like, you get the 4-day show and then you get to the end of the Thursday or something. And I'm like, there's some people out there who are like, they've kind of already made expenses and they're going into the weekend. They're going to that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're like, holy, the rest is profit. And it feels amazing. I love that feeling where you're like, oh my God, I've got 2 or 3 days left and I've already made profit. Whereas a lot of folks, some of the, and it's not just, I'm certainly not just saying old timers, but like, there's a lot of folks out there who are like, no way, I don't want to stand around in the street for an extra day and get all tired. By the time the real show starts, I'm exhausted.
Okay.
I get that too. It's
I
just
do.
Not me. Yeah. Where do you stand on that? What do you like?
Well, I guess I want to make money. So if I can make it in 2 days, if it's a show that the extra day means standing around not making anything, then yeah, get rid of it. But if it's a decent show that has 4 days and you're making money all those days, I'm all for it. But the thing I wanted to say, what I've kind of gotten spoiled with this year was both Bayou City and the Woodlands gave us that extra day to set up. So I literally took 2 days to set up our show. And then I go into Fort Worth and I've got a smaller booth. And I'm on an offshoot street on 5th Street where the driving lane for people to unload is very narrow. And we had to be the last flight in. So I then had this kind of panicked feeling like, I don't know if we're going to get this set up in time. And part of it was just the logistics, not just my slow, gimpy ass over here. It was like when you've got, vehicles right outside of your inline booth and your stuff is unloaded onto the curb, but you can't get out of your booth to get your stuff to start putting your booth together. I mean, I don't blame the artist who's got their vehicle there because that's just the logistics of that row. And, they have to unload too. So it just made it a little bit challenging. We made it work. It was fine. But that was something that was a little bit of a challenge for me this past weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And those streets do get narrow. And at least you get a little room at the end of the block so you can do some finagling. But you guys had to do it in one day. So yeah, it was interesting to get together with some folks and talk to them. Had a good time. And like I said, it's a sweet show. And again, and I'm certainly not bad mouthing the show because I had a bad weekend. It's just not really the big originals market for me. My wife did great. She met a new collector.
Sweet.
Had a nice weekend. So there was up and down all over the place. I got to see Greg Davis and always enjoy seeing his photography, and got to see Oscar, and it was good times.
Cool. Well, we have a really great talk this week with Julia Gilmore, and I've been seeing her on the road at every show this year so far. We've just been kind of like on the same path, so I'm glad we had the opportunity to kind of sit down and get to know her. She is a firecracker, man. I just love her energy.
Absolutely. If you give her a hug and she gives you a smack of a kiss on that cheek, you're going to have red lipstick on your cheek to take home to the wife.
You'll be wiping that one off.
Renee's are like, where have you been?
Oh, that's by Julia's
she's a sweetheart. Exactly. Or Ma, talk about road Ma. She'll plant a big old lipstick kiss on your cheek too.
Yes, we all love the road mom's kiss. But let's just do this. Let's listen to what Julia had to say and hear her story.
She's got a great voice and an incredible presence out there in the art show world. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one.
All right, here's Julia Gilmore from a lot of places out there, but now she's in New Hampshire again.
This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is brought to you by Zap, the digital application service where artists and art festivals connect.
Will, I started applying last week for next season's art shows, and I just really love that with Zapplication, we can categorize our shows by favorites, and then I can go in and sort those favorites by application deadline, so I never miss an application to one of my favorite shows.
It's true. It has lots of different options, lots of different add-ons and tags that we can use.
And there never seems to be enough time. I just got home from a show. I need to get back into the studio. There's pieces to be made, but applications are coming due.
I'm so busy with all of the other hats that I wear to go onto other websites to apply to shows. To be honest, I don't even do it. I only go to Zap.
Yeah.
And basically, if I don't have to think about it, then I'm a happy man.
Hey, we have a call to entry this week for the Peoria Art Guild Fine Art Fair in Peoria, Illinois.
Nice. Another good Illinois show there for your schedules. You ever done that show, Douglas?
I have. Nice size show. It's one of those that they keep the numbers at a reasonable amount.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can keep the slice of the pie just perfect for what we want to make.
Very cool. The Peoria Art Guild is actually one of the oldest arts organizations in the country. It was founded in 1878. They're 145 years old. Their mission is to bring art to the community and the community to art. They do a good job with that.
Yeah, they sure do. And I mean, it's an event that helps fund their art guild all year round. And the collectors there, they line up. They patronize that show and they are loyal to that show.
It's the 61st annual Peoria Art Guild Fine Art Fair. That runs in the middle of September. That's 23 and 24.
They take such good care of the artists. I mean, I think they feed you just about every meal throughout the course of the weekend. There's special banquets and they bring you snacks and their lunches. You don't have to worry about a lot of out-of-pocket expense with this show, because they're taking good care of you.
Over 200 volunteers to take care of any artist's needs. So just about anything. Douglas, you can get a foot rub.
You can get a rip. Whatever you need. They got them for you.
They do a good job at that. So if you want a chance to exhibit at the Peoria Art Guild Fine Art Fair, you're going to have to apply, and that application deadline is coming up here. It's on June 4th, so make sure you get that in.
You're looking for another Midwest show for your schedule in September, take a look at Peoria. They take good care of you.
All right, Julia, so good to see you. We just saw each other down in Houston. It's a nice treat.
Practically neighbors at the Bayou, a double treat, that is.
You were between me and the bathroom, so we saw each other every time I passed you by.
That's right. That slow march to the porta potty, right?
Well, I brought this up before we started recording this, but I'm looking out your back window, and I think I hate you right now.
Oh, don't hate me.
I know, I love you.
Instead of hating me, come and visit.
My God.
I have an open door policy. I would love you and Renee to come and visit anytime. You'll love it.
That back view is insane. Tell me about it. What's going on here?
I am in New Hampshire and right in the middle of the White Mountains on the northern side of the Presidential Peaks. So outside my studio, outside my entire house is a view of the mountains, which drives me crazy because as beautiful as it is, the two things I love to do in life are paint and mountaineer. And so on beautiful sunny days, I'm out of the studio, right? It's like I'm
right.
out.
You're like, I love painting, but right now I like mountains more.
Sorry. So Douglas, all of my collectors that are waiting for custom pieces are praying for rain in the White Mountains, right? So I don't go hiking.
Gorgeous. So you grew up in New Hampshire, right? And
I did.
And they're back now. You're made kind of full circle.
I did come full circle. I grew up until I was about 9, and my dad hauled us all to 400 miles north of Montreal. He was in the pulp and paper business, and then I'm the baby of the family, and everyone filtered back to the U.S. I have dual citizenship, and about 5 years ago, I had a need to come back to my country of origin, and being self-employed, could live and build a house anywhere. Right. I had 1,000,001 options, and then finally said, what am I thinking? I love the mountains. This is home. So about 5 years ago, I purchased about 4 acres of land and built a very open concept, echoey house, you might notice.
Thank you for that, by the way. I'll be working on your audio engineering.
I'll get that right out in the open. I'm not living in a church, Douglas.
Well, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
It is a pretty sweet spot, and it's quite remote and close enough to get on the highway and on the roads to head off to art shows. So it's a good spot.
So not too remote, not like,
No, not too bad. I'm not on like 50 acres in the middle of, the boreal forest or anything.
Yeah, well, our internet signal seems pretty strong, so you're not too much in the boonies.
It's pretty miraculous. When I first moved here, there was no internet. And I'm like, how can a guy run a business here? That's insane.
Exactly.
People would find me parked at McDonald's, and I had to put out a disclaimer. I don't touch the food. I'm there for the Wi-Fi.
For the Wi-Fi.
The girls in there, after all my images, important, right? I don't eat that shit.
Right. Well, it's iconic. I mean, that's what your work is. It's like that kind of iconic imagery that we think of over the last several decades.
Exactly. It's just stuff that hits a nerve in terms of memory and kind of a gut visceral nod to the past.
Mm-hmm. Like I think of like the marketing idea. I mean, you've got images of Wonder Bread and Spam and Wrigley's gum, things that like when we were kids.
And it's just that it never ceases to amaze me at a show. Someone will say, "Oh my God, look at that painting. Remember when popsicles were two pieces that you break them with, right?" Like, it's incredible what these, as you say, iconic images hit people right at a gut punch. Really, it's amazing, and everybody has a connection to these images because they were everywhere at one point, and that's pretty much how I see the world. There's cool, fabulous beauty everywhere. Just even mostly in everyday stuff. I mean, look at where I live. I don't do landscapes. I don't need to. Landscapes can do themselves, right? But
Right.
to honor a can of cocktail wieners, now that is taking that's a whole
There you go.
another level.
What made you want to start into that? What was kind of the impetus behind it?
Well, it was kind of an interesting story. I went to art school in Montreal because I was still in Canada at the time and studied art. I have my bachelor's in fine art, and at the time, there was no such thing as representational work. If you weren't an abstract artist, you couldn't go to school. You were out. You were just like so passé, right?
Okay.
And so at the time, I was doing great, big, huge abstracts. And after graduating from university and college, I kind of got just, I'm a very social person. One of these human beings with
Anyone who knows you will agree on that point. To a fault, maybe, right?
Yep, you got me. You know me well. Julia, get back in your booth and stop talking to neighbors. And at the time, Douglas, after graduating, seemed like the only direction to go at that point, particularly in Canada, was to, mount an exhibition, work a year in your studio, do a gallery show, and only really get to meet people at the opening and only have that one-on-one with a potential collector that way. And it really did not feed both sides of my personality. I mean, as much as I love the solitude and of creating in the studio, if I don't get out on the road and do art shows, I go insane because that dual, it feeds both parts of my personality. At the time, I didn't know that. So I kind of abandoned my career after not too long after, graduating, and started a band because that was more of an immediate kind of thing that was, you had an audience.
Right.
I didn't know that you could do art shows. I didn't know anything about that whole circuit whatsoever.
So is that a purely American thing? I mean, is that not something as common in Canada?
Pretty darn much, yeah. There's maybe one well-known outdoor art festival in Toronto, and that's pretty much it. It's nothing like this, here in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay, so art came first, but then this band thing kind of snuck in there, right? That kind of ignited that audience, that performer quality.
Totally. Always a need for expression, but this was a way of expressing myself creatively that had some feedback and some immediacy to it, rather than being, okay, your work for 6 months to a year to mount an solo exhibition. It's like, boy, that's a lot of quiet time, quiet studio time. And
that's a lot of emotional ups and downs with the whole process. Like, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? And you kind of just get out there with it in kind of what we do now.
Exactly. And there was none of that kind of back and forth engagement with the audiences that we have now doing art shows. So I abandoned that and started this crazy kind of, it was an art school band kind of combo. It was a 3-piece band with a guitar player who I knew from art school, and we were working in a theater, just bartending to make ends meet while we were going to school, and met a guy who was a tap dancer. So we said, okay, if you're the drummer, because if you can do that with your feet, you can do it with your hands. So
yeah, he becomes the percussionist.
He was a percussionist, right? And I had studied piano long way back when, so I was the keyboard player, kind of a little bit like the Doors, not sound wise, but lineup wise, because we didn't have a bass player. I played all of the bass lines on this old Yamaha YC10 and the cheesy, eerie fills with the right hand that were kind of crossed between, well, we loved the B-52s at the time, but we were a little bit more like the Cramps and maybe, Nick Cave and the Lounge Lizards, which were really kind of cool underground New York.
So kind of a punk flavor, yeah?
Definitely. Punk, new wave-ish, really a lot of freeform stuff. Music kind of changed once I figured out how to play the bass line, cheesy fills, and sing. So that was a whole nother, it's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time, right? That takes some practice.
It does. Wow. So did you say you built this band together, or?
I did, yeah. I was the songwriter, lyricist, wrote the songs, and I was kind of the head chief. I would book the gigs and stuff. And we were at the time we had no place to live. We were squatting in an old abandoned building in Chinatown in downtown Montreal.
Really?
And we subsequently turned the place, we guilted the city of Montreal, who owned it, into preserving heritage housing, because there were maybe 20 in a square block of these old 2-story flats from like the turn of the century that were working class homes near the port of Montreal, but beautiful, they hadn't really been kept up, but beautiful slate roofs and still a lot of the architectural integrity to it. And so we eventually got caught and then guilted the city of Montreal into turning them. We formed a cooperative and turned them into low-income housing, but kept the heritage element to it.
Oh,
yeah.
So interesting. So I mean, it kind of like you had that one kind of intention, to create yourself, be expressive, but then there also kind of crept in there kind of a little bit of advocacy in a way.
There was, and a lot of that was mainly born from need.
Sure.
That need. I mean, we were dirt poor. We didn't want to pursue a career that was going to stop us from being, underground musicians kind of thing. So it was pretty, there were different times. It was pretty cool.
Well, I did Google you and your group. What was the name of the group?
Well, it had 2 incarnations. It was basically the same. I don't remember now why we changed the name, but initially the name of the band was Condition. And we called our brand of music Urban Primitive Swing, which was pretty much, it was very primitive, and it it had a swing flair to it. And it certainly wasn't country music, right? So
it reminded me, like right off the bat, I saw a performance of Mumbo Jumbo. Was that one of the songs, one of the tracks? And it had a real feel of like Susie and the Banshees when she was with the Creatures. It had total vibe of that.
I can see that. Yeah, that's a great observation. It was really it was a completely interesting time, because it was we were doing a lot of innovative stuff. It was quite a critical success, totally not a financial success, right? Totally not, right?
Is that why it didn't last forever, or what was?
It kind of went from that band, and it was pretty much the same personnel. We might have had a new member come in, and then the band became the Pallbearers, and we put out a bunch of videos, and I've yet to post it on Vimeo and social media. My son recently, when we moved from Canada here, I found this like 3 million year old copy of the last video we put to a song that I wrote called "Beat My Daddy to the Grave," and it's basically about you're living your life so hard, you're going to be your daddy to the grave kind of thing, and it was, I said, oh, look at this video. It's like some format that hasn't existed in 100 years, right? So he was in film school and in Toronto at the time. And so as a Mother's Day present, he figured out, he was able to get a transfer onto, a reasonable...
right, on a newer technology.
21st century.
Right. Wow, that must have been a cool experience to see that.
I was terrified because I hadn't seen, how when you've had a career, it's kind of like looking at older work like that you did when you were in art school or something. It's like, oh my God, that's, you don't even want to look at it. So it was a little scary, but I was pretty tickled to see that it kind of stood the test of time. Guess it kind of pays to express yourself ahead of your time, right?
There you go.
Fine. Right. It's okay.
But then what brought you back to, being a painter and expressing yourself that way as a career?
It's an interesting story. I was still doing the band thing and putting out some albums, and we had, done some pretty cool, interesting things. We were chosen as a cultural exchange to the city of Berlin for the 350th anniversary, and did a lot of really cool stuff. But it was when I had my son, who's now 24, and things were quieted down, I'm not, we didn't tour extensively, but a fair bit. And, the life of a musician is a lot of late nights. And so with a newborn, I had put the band on hold. And I just, for years and years, Douglas, I felt like, there's something lacking in my life. There's something lacking. And, it was everybody else's fault, my parents, my then husband, my this, my that, whatever, I looked for, and then once I had my son, it was like, holy shit, it's because I'm not creating. I was writing the songs and creating in a venue of music, which is not making something tangible like art. And then the light bulb went on. It's like I created a human being, and then I realized that what I was missing was creating art and making art.
Oh,
And
so the act of birthing a human was like, I need some tangible stuff that I can look at, that I make and pass on to the world.
Exactly.
That was a need you had.
It was like this trigger that it was, just like, oh, I get it, right? The light bulb really went on. And so it's sort of been many years that I was working with the band, like 15 years or something since art school. And so when he was napping as a newborn, I said, okay, I'm going to get back to doing some art. And, the tools were pretty rusty, right?
Oh,
the form
15 years.
Is like, oh, God.
Well, those tools, right. I was going to say, so getting back into it, did it feel a little bit like, self-discovery again and all of that?
At first it was like, I think the natural human tendency is, okay, I'll go right back to where I was.
Where you were,
these big, vast, because it's what I know. And I started working on this huge canvas about Route 66, but all abstract. And I thought, hold on a second, you're dooming yourself to failure. Somebody's going to be waking up from a nap any minute, and you'll never finish it. So I forced myself to pull everything right back down to basics. And so what I started doing was creating little pencil drawings of everyday objects, an apple, and utilizing colored paper and pencils and, negative space that built in. Then that became little tiny paintings. And I realized when I underpainted the canvas with a color, that was like a jump ahead. I was already one step into the creative process. And then the next step was realizing that if I used a palette knife, I could get a lot of paint on there quickly before Adam woke up. And so it's interesting to me that what was a need to create in a short period of time, because my newborn was napping, is basically what is the style I've created that I'm known for, which is basically large, colorful palette knife paintings of everyday objects on an underpainted canvas.
So you don't use brushes?
I don't use brushes, no. It's all knife work.
So the palette knife was like, I can rinse this off and go. I don't have to sit and rinse all my brushes.
I wipe it on a piece of cloth. I don't have to exactly. That was another. It was all about being a time saver.
I mean, is that kind of thought process kind of followed you throughout your career in other aspects too?
Saving time on things? No, I'm a big time waster.
Oh, no. No, but I mean like thinking about how can I boil it down to the kind of the simplest steps for myself, or is that a theme, or was it just in that aspect of a newborn?
I think it was just in that venue, and where where that went. And I think that was a larger function of that was my incredible thirst to be creating again. That I would do anything, anyway, figure anything out to be doing that. So
I guess what I come up from talking to you is I get that what you're saying, that thirst for the creativity, but there's something that's very fast about you. There's something that it's like a very rapid fire kind of like inspiration, like a firecracker. And I can see that you're like that in that sense,
That's a great observation, and I take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. Oh no, I mean it because it's extremely enthusiastic, and it's charged, it's energetic, it's happy, it's bright,
and that is really the person I am, and that's why somehow something connected on that level at that point, that maybe because I had no time to think about it, my intuition just hit hard on how to create this. And to be honest with you, Douglas, I don't agonize over my art. It comes really easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's really being connected to that. Carolyn Mace talks about it being like living on the vertical, where you are just like on this upward trajectory, where it's like you don't sit and have not saying you, but people who would maybe hem and haw about something, they can't make a decision, they're not sure if it's right. It's like your gut tells you, and you are trained to react to it.
Just go with it. I think, Douglas, I firmly believe that as human beings, we're taught, okay, if you want it to be good, if you want to be successful, you've got to work really, 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 really hard. And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to achieve that. I personally believe that's very, very, very wrong.
Okay.
On the contrary, we should be doing whatever it be, being a chef, being an accountant. You should be doing what comes easily to you, because that's the message. You're the conduit. It's there.
And naturally. Yeah. Right.
So fortunately, I had that experience with giving birth to my son and needing to create, I think it just all kind of came together.
So like the subject of your work, it's like, okay, I want to paint the Lone Ranger. You don't like sit and hem and haw about, is someone going to like the Lone Ranger? Should I do the Lone Ranger? Is it going to hit? You're like, you feel it in here.
And I feel there's sometimes, I usually put together, 89% of my work now is custom work, but I still hold back enough for myself to put together 4 or 5 times a year, a new collection, a new body of work that kind of works together. And truthfully, it's often theme oriented, like a Texas theme, or if I'm going to do the Florida shows, it's kind of like doing the Macy's Day Parade or something, kind of like a theme, right?
Yeah.
Put a bunch of ideas together, and I think, oh, that's really cool. And sometimes, particularly with the Lone Ranger, I thought, oh boy, in the times we're in right now, a man standing there holding guns at you might not sell, right? That might be kind of, and then I thought, well, the hell with it. I mean, it's a cool, iconic image, and it can be interpreted any way you want. No, you don't know what my statement on it is if you really, other than that it's a cool image from the past. That's only ever my statement. And I worried about dragging the Lone Ranger around with me because I had just finished him at the Bayou show we were together at. And I thought, oh boy, that Lone Ranger might be with me for a long time. And
Bayou Silver,
Bob's your uncle. Out he went on Sunday to a fabulous home. So it's kind of, I think it is a lot of. I do think all the time about subject matter and cool stuff. And my deal is that I think artists often worry about running out of ideas and running out of subject matter. Yeah. And I keep it kind of very organic and very basic. I only paint stuff I like. I like a lot of stuff. I'll never run out of ideas that way. And the kind of cool thing is a lot of other people like the same stuff. So they buy it. It's really pretty basic and organic.
Well, to back up to what you said earlier, did I hear you right? You said 85% of your work is custom?
I said 89. I hate to correct the host.
Oh my God! But that's even higher.
I usually don't get math right, but yeah.
Okay, so people walk in and they see your representation of images that you connect to, and they're like, "I connect to this energy. Can you make me a painting of this bottle of tequila or something?" Is that how it works?
That's usually what they want.
Okay, is it? Okay.
Exactly. There's usually subject matter. Of course, it's got to be within my vision and my realm and my subject matter. If you want a painting of your grandmother, keep moving, right?
Okay, yes. I'm not doing portraits.
No, I'm not doing portraits. I'm not doing tigers in the jungle, So the connections always come from the shows, people who I've met there. And I do a lot of in-homes and a lot of consultations. Douglas, I'm the baby of the family. And I think that makes me a pleaser. So, trying to make everybody happy. I have 2 older sisters that never were. So I'm always quite the diplomat that way. So I think that's why a lot of artists will tell potential collectors to go fry an egg if they want a custom piece.
Sure.
I love
I don't do that. They're like, I don't do that. And I don't do commissions. And you're like, let's talk. Right?
Exactly. And maybe I'm just a lousy salesman on the spot. And maybe on the long term, but it's all about the connection, and and those connections lead to other connections. And if a show if I've zeroed at a show and people say, well, how was the show? I'll say, I'll tell you in 6 months, because
it's a real long game model for you.
Totally. And I'm a monster follow up. I'm it's all the long game. It's all about relationships.
How does that work for you? So if you feel like you've got the spark, do you then, before they get the heck out of your booth, you're like, can I have your name and number? I'll follow up with you. I'll send you sketches or something. I mean, is that how it works?
Nobody that gets out of my booth that likes my work without me obtaining their email and their cell phone.
Oh, okay.
So that I've got two ways to communicate with them, because as we know, not everyone's favorite way of communicating is Instagram message or telephone, or, everybody's, kind of complicates the world, because you can email someone till you're blue in the face, shoot them a text, and they'll say, "Oh, great to hear from you."
Right. And you're like, I thought I was bothering you.
And I years ago came to the conclusion, if you have given me your email address or a form of communication with you and expressed a great deal of interest in my artwork, I will keep at you until you either tell me to F off or you buy a painting. Don't lie to me. Tell me if that's not, if you don't want me to follow up. And 95% of the time, people are, thanks for following up on this. Thank you for reminding me. People's lives get busy. It's not their responsibility to remember me. It's my responsibility to remember them.
A lot of us artists will feel like, I'm bothering them. I'm doing the hard sell. They are not responding. And it really just comes down to like finding them at the right moment in between whatever busy lives they've got going on. They really do want what you have, but they can let that stuff just kind of slip out from under them if we're not, persistent enough.
That's exactly right. It's my business to be looking after my business. It's not the other way around.
Okay, so you kind of developed yourself as an artist, and you fall into the shows. You talked about the challenges of painting while you've got an infant, but then how do you form a career of selling at the shows, raising a child kind of in tow like that?
Well, it was quite a challenge. As of the age of 6, I raised my son completely on my own. So he's pretty much, and at the time I was living in Canada, so that's an added layer of something to put on the list of extra things you have to do apart from, packing your tent, booking your hotel. You still got to get across the damn border, right? Which is
my God,
which is a whole nother parameter.
You're saying like with the lists of sheets of inventory and all that kind of stuff you have to have ready to present at the border?
Right. You go on the truck side. You have to go through a broker. Even though for many years, because I'm an American citizen, I was playing that card until that card didn't work anymore. And then I had to do it, the opposite way, which is the way you're supposed to do, because it is essentially taking Canadian-made goods across the border for sale in a foreign country, right? Because they're not made in the U.S.
But before you were kind of held to that, it was like, I'm a dual citizen and I'm just taking my stuff with me across the border.
Yeah. And some of them I create in my U.S. studio, and kind of like, it was always a major run around and a major, you never knew if you were going to get across the border. I could because I'm an American citizen, but they could essentially refuse my goods, my paintings, right?
Oh,
so,
gosh.
Getting back to being on the road and doing, we all know what it's like to be on the road, and all of, the challenges and things that we have to face and think about for years, for all of my son's life until he is on his own. I was supporting him selling paintings at art shows in the U.S. So crossing the border, I would put him on. I had a very good friend. He didn't do the back and forth thing with his dad. His dad was a musician and not really there for him. So I had a really good friend from yoga class that I would put Adam on the bus, say on Thursday morning, drive to Philadelphia, 600 miles, set up at Rittenhouse Square, do the 3-day show. And she would pick him up on the bus Thursday afternoon, do the 3-day show, and drive halfway back Sunday night, so that after teardown, then drive the rest of the way from like from Rochester to Canada, so that I could be there to pick him up on the bus after. So it was a major juggling act.
That's exhausting. I mean,
it was, yeah.
Oh, geez. And I mean, but the dedication to your work and to being a good mom, but then to keep at that. I mean, some people might just become a waitress, or, you know what I mean? Or do something more at home or something like that.
I'm very stubborn. I'm also basically unemployable because I can't get anywhere on time. So,
Isn't that why most of us are art fair artists? Because we're just downright unemployable in any other setting.
Exactly. Which reminds me, Douglas, would
Yeah.
you mind opening my booth at the Woodlands this weekend?
Okay.
If I'm late.
If you're late.
If I'm late.
That's hilarious. So yeah, but I do know that. I mean, that must have been when he was young, because he became a staple on the road. I mean, people knew you and Adam.
People,
Yeah,
I know. He's like,
you were like,
you
he
know,
was like your
great, Adam's
sidekick.
here. He was my sidekick, and it's a pretty darn cool thing to note, Douglas, that yes, you can grow up a secure human being as a roadshow kid, right, on the art show circuit. He, when he was little, when he started, he was really, kind of an insecure kid that didn't know anybody, didn't talk to anybody, was very shy. And to this day, he'll go anywhere, and he's very, the manners and the ability to talk to anyone. And you don't know who your neighbor's going to be at a show, and how to get along with human beings that you'll never see again, potentially. And you have to work together. And it was pretty cool over the years what I saw it did for his personality and the really cool person he has become.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I mean, we get to be who we are, and our kids can grow up healthy and, self-actualized, and they can become their own creative forces themselves by your example.
It's so true. And he became quite a little entrepreneur, watching his mom, selling her paintings. And he had a little tractor business. And when he was in high school, and made all kinds of money doing that. It's pretty neat to think, it's that not every path has to be the same. Not every formula has to be repeated again and again and again. All things can be taken into account, and all things can work. All things, if you with enough good example and patience and trust. And he knew, dinner often was on the table at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, because I didn't close the studio until then. But he knew it was out of love of what I do and love of my family, meaning he and I. So it's a pretty cool thing.
My sister and I also grew up not in a traveling situation with my mom, but we grew up with a single mother who didn't have a husband who was helping her out. And I did kind of feel like that kids who grow up with a single mom like that, with that kind of dedication, that the relationship gets kind of elevated. There's a tightness. There's kind of a bond, almost like you're two peas in a pod, or you're like the child almost grows up a little bit faster. I mean, was that your experience, that you guys?
Very much so. It kind of became quite interesting. I think Adam was very much born just a very relaxed, comfortable human being. He's an old soul. And as you've quite rightly noted about me, everything is fast with me. I make decisions quickly. I move, I'm like I'm not an old soul. I'm like dumb and brand new soul kind of thing. So we kind of, to quote Marilyn Monroe, or whoever said that. So we were kind of, he was always, oddly enough, the level-headed one that very, patiently listened to some of my crazy ideas on what to do with an art piece. Or he also became a fabulous foil to questions on, okay, what color should the background on this be? So because someone
like a stabilizing force, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes feel like in a situation like that there's a lot of things that our children bring in naturally through their own personalities and their own DNA, that sort of thing, right? But so then true. I also feel like in that sense, if he was calm, he knew that everything was going to be okay. He didn't have to fix the situation. So he could trust that things were all just going to be all right and things work out, even if it looked a little messy on the surface. You know what I mean?
A little frantic and a little disorganized. But he always knew that I could always land on my feet with things, that it would always work out. He is cockamamie as nuts as some of the schemes would be, and driving until 2:00 in the morning to avoid construction on the highway. He was probably the most secure kid I've ever met.
Wow. Well, what's he doing now? You say he's 24?
He's 24. He graduated from film school in Toronto, top-notch school with honors, and has won film. You think you know where this is going. And won awards for short documentaries in the New Hampshire Film Festival. Well, he announced that, and he said, "Mom, I knew that We, in our family, we get a post-secondary education, and now I've done that, and now I'm going to do what I've wanted to do since I was 2 and be a trained engineer. And that's,
Really? Did that
and
knock you over with a feather or what?
well, didn't surprise me at all because it's all he's ever talked about.
Oh,
And so he's now working for a railroad in New Hampshire, and he's basically running everything. He's engineering, conducting, doing track work, you name it. He's repairing locomotives. He just, it's funny. I think we all have someone in our families that has either a family member, usually a family member who's just insane, like insane beyond insane about trains, right?
oh,
And usually it's your unmarried 68-year-old uncle living in his mother's basement. No, that's my cool dude's son.
okay. Did he have the train set that went all around?
Oh God, don't even ask.
Oh my
Just like,
gosh.
don't. But he's living his dream, and back to parenting. As much as I would love to see him pursue a career in filmmaking, because he's very gifted, he's doing what he speaks to him and what comes to him easily, what he loves.
Well, I think for Renee and I, we raised our 2 kids, and they're in the same age range as your son. If anything, what we teach them in this career that we do is that they can shift, and they can do something. He can finish film school and then say, I'm done with that. And it's okay. They can they can chase the next thing that brings them joy.
Exactly. And it's a world now where it's not like you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, soldier, sailor for have one career path for the rest of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Life, if you play your cards right and eat your vegetables, can be long and happy and healthy, right?
Yeah.
So
and have chapters and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. You can do more than one thing. I consider myself very fortunate to have had that whole career with music, and now have all of right brain stuff. I'm probably never going to entertain the left brain.
Boring, right?
Yeah. Well, Douglas, I'm so right-brained, I tip when I walk.
Well, at least
like
you're not.
What? Taxes? What?
Oh God, right? That's why we hire people.
Exactly. Outsource.
Well, you've said about your work and about yourself as a person that you are like optimistic to a fault, but that you
Really,
are just
totally.
So tell me, what does that mean? I mean, describe that quality in yourself.
I honestly think it's got a lot to do. I think I was just born happy. I'm going to slam back to that baby of the family concept again.
Sure.
I was the baby of 2 daughters. We were the Gilmore girls, three Gilmore girls. And
wasn't there a TV show about that?
We're ahead of our time.
Okay, there
you go. All stuff you can't bank on, though, right?
Yes.
It was, my parents didn't get along. One sister didn't get along with them. Like everybody, the whole family was always against each other in one fashion or another.
There was a bit of chaos.
Oh yeah, and it was a 3-ring circus, really, and I was the peacemaker, right? And oddly enough, I think that's what made me a happy person, because I can see I can see all sides. Yeah. And they drove me so insane with their unhappiness that I said, I think at an early age, it taught me I'm not going down that path. That path sucks.
Well, happiness is a choice, right?
It's so easy to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, you not to be Pollyanna about it, but just like somebody can list the things that are going wrong in their lives and be just a total curmudgeon, you can flip it and do the same thing.
And it becomes a complete self-fulfilling prophecy if it's like, well, that show didn't work out. Well, I zeroed at it. Well, I won't go back to it. Or I went,
God, and now I'm starting to feel like I suck. And, you know what I mean? It's
really. Well, and a lot of that, when we all have challenges. We all have flat tires and shows that don't work, and it's just like, my theory is just keep moving, just keep on going. It's not the end of it's not the end of the road.
Don't take too much time to wallow in it, and
don't manifest it so it turns into anything bigger. Like, just keep moving and put a smile on your face. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's not. there's so much in the world. It's such a big, beautiful place. It's, yeah.
Well, it sounds to me, I mean, I can relate, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but when you're in a young family life as a kid and you feel like things are chaotic or you're walking on eggshells, there are two things that come out of it. You get the hypervigilant pleaser, you get that, which has served you with your collectors and served you in so many ways. But then you can also be the one with the positive attitude that can be like, to survive, you have to be positive or it's going to take you down and down fast.
Exactly. It's your worst enemy, right? I take it a step further. I don't, as crazy as this sounds, people are always talking about all the bad in the world. There's no such thing as bad. There are varying degrees of good, Douglas. It's not all. There's no bad. There's no evil. Don't give me. Yeah, sorry. This is the way I see things. And I also believe that no situation is hopeless. There's always a solution to every, you might have to bend a rule.
Rules are guidelines, right?
Like parking behind your booth,
Yeah,
but,
okay, yeah.
But I know all the artists out there that might be listen to this and say, "Oh yeah,
that Julia again."
That damn Julia." But seriously, I've had enough points in my life with all careers, with everything I've done, where it's like, okay, this is the end. We're screwed here. And there's always, if you just give it enough belief and time to think about there's always another route. I think if anything, what I learned in art school, Douglas, was how to think creatively. And that's what that is.
Oh, so it wasn't necessarily about designs. I mean, that was important, but it was like a model for how to be, how to think.
How to think completely, how to honor what you were born with, because I pretty much believe artists are born that way. And so it was learning to honor that in your personality, but then learning to adopt that way of thinking creatively to all aspects of your life, not just doing art.
Yeah, I've learned this about you at Bayou City last week. You even enjoy the setting up the art fair, the sweating, the tearing it down. You're like happy. And some people are like, I got to get this done as fast as possible and get the hell out of here, right?
I'm a weirdo.
But no, I mean, years ago when Renee and I started this, I can be more of the one that can get growly, with the setup. And she said, listen, setting up an art show is as much of our life as making the work, as traveling and going to that restaurant, these experiences.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you embody that.
When I first started, I'm with Renee. When I first started doing shows, I could see everybody was like, oh, set up, tear down. Oh, whoa.
Rush to get out of here.
It's raining. Oh, whoa. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to be doing this and this is going to be my life, I'm going to, if I have to brainwash myself into loving it, I will. And I do, I think a lot of what I do is a little bit of self-brainwashing. At the time, I was like, okay, this is a workout. I'm going to get muscles from setting up. This is great. This is tear down. Tear down, there's an ice cold beer at the end of it. Wait for that, kind of like that.
Right. It's like parenting yourself, right? It's like a parent. It's like what do they say with kids? Instead of like a punishment, a positive redirection. So you have to positively redirect yourself.
Exactly. Well, a little bit of Pavlov's dogs,
There's a drink in my future.
Oh, yeah. Well, ice cold beer is my entire motivation for everything in life. I may as well be honest.
That's awesome. It keeps it happy, keeps it light and lively, right?
Exactly. Modest.
So we're basically on the same tour. I looked ahead to see what you're up to. So we were down in Houston, and I think the next 3 Texas shows we're going to be like we're like a big caravan of carnies driving in the same.
It's like the circus train, right?
The circus train. Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's delightful news. I knew we were at the Woodlands together this weekend, and then Fort Worth and South Lake.
Yep, we'll be there too. So, yeah. So, do you do the Florida market, or is Texas where you kind of kick off your year?
I actually came to the show at Bayou after 5 shows in a row in Florida, pretty much.
Wow.
Years ago, I stopped doing. You would think my work would kick ass in Florida,
Okay.
big, bold, colorful. And I found it didn't do it. It wasn't. So I stopped doing the Florida circuit years and years ago, and then went back in 2021 because they were basically the only game in town,
Mm,
because a lot of, Texas didn't reopen after COVID a lot,
right.
and so
So
was
they got
pleasantly.
the early bubble, basically. Florida did. Yeah.
Precisely, right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite encouraging, and then last year even more so, and this year was super great. So now I'm in the happy but unhappy situation of doing, the Florida circuit and the Texas circuit, which is
No break
something,
in between.
with no break in between.
Mm.
Just 2 weeks off now to, between Bayou and the Woodlands, but it is kind of a grueling schedule because it's 5 and 5, and then I'm back and have just about a week before I head to do shows on the East Coast.
Wow.
But I'm getting a little smarter in my old age. Last year, I decided, okay, I'm taking the summer off
Mm.
so that I can enjoy where I live and
Yeah.
hike, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Uh-huh.
And if I don't take some time off, my collectors will kill me because some of them have been patiently waiting for their paintings. So
So you're
I
able to
fulfill.
kind of push them out a bit if the schedule gets too tight. And,
I have the best collectors on the planet Earth, and
oh,
patient, very patient.
well, they like what you're making. Our collectors do know us. They do know, that we are one of a kind, original, what we do, who we are, what we make. And, they're not looking for cookie cutter factory made type things. So there is no timeline in that regards.
Exactly. I also I kind of employ a little something that I used to do as a bartender,
Uh-huh.
and I would run the bar and the restaurant myself.
Sure.
So I'd get slammed at the bar or the tables, and someone would come in, and a lot of my collectors are booking multiple pieces. Right?
Okay.
So most of them. So with bar, I'd make sure everybody got a drink.
Oh, yeah.
So with my collectors, if they've booked 3 paintings, I make sure they get one of them. Then I move on to the next person. I've got kind of like,
Right.
kind of, I'm like, I'm making sure that everybody again is happy.
They're not sitting there looking. Not sitting there looking at their watch like, I haven't had a drink. If you get them that first drink, and then they can just settle in, right? So you get them that first painting, they settle in, and they know the rest is coming, and they're fine.
And they're fine. And then they've got that to enjoy. And then I circle back to them for the second one. And that, it's kind of, it's kind of an interesting little dance that I do. But, we all know that feeling of sitting at a bar and not getting served. And,
I've worked in fine dining and bartending and waiting. And it's a total, coming back to that being able to read people, I feel like I'm like that too. You can feel when they're getting that little, like, it's like rising up in their chest, like they're about to say, "Excuse me," but you get to them right before they get to that point.
Totally. And don't we get to be incredible reads of human beings in the art show circuit?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it for me was my upbringing and just wanting to make sure there was no chaos and nobody was going to get upset, because then I could kind of keep things level. But it has really served me in this industry.
So true. So true. Same with me. That, and having worked in the, in the service industry and not being, afraid to talk to anybody, and everybody is valuable. Everybody, it's that human connection and the connection with the collectors that become long-term friends. That, again, that long game thing. I may never retire from doing the shows because I love all of that aspect of it so much.
Would you say that you form friendships with collectors that are long lasting and stuff? Like you go to stay at their houses and form friendships?
Stay at their houses, dinner parties. I have a very excellent collector in Disney World that had hired me a couple of years ago. They have some of my work in their New Jersey home, and they were building this big, really gorgeous contemporary home in Disney World, and hired me to do companion painting for their original Warhol.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, no pressure here.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Andy. And so consequently did. They're delighted. And now they're booking another piece and had me for dinner when I was at a show nearby in Florida this last time, and invited another couple who admire the work and now have booked 6 large pieces. And then the Andy Warhol people have booked a 7 by 8 foot painting. It just kind of, it snowballs. And so much of that is the connection between people and just being you and not having any disconnect. I think that if you could say anything about my artwork and me, there's no disconnect. My art is me. I am my art. We,
It's all merged.
it's honest statement. It's straightforward. That's what I am. It's happy. It's no artifice, no hidden agenda. And so when someone likes your art like that, then they're going to be bound to like the person.
Yeah.
And so that just enhances and adds to it. And I'm now working on this crazy, wacky idea of, I have a couple of custom pieces booked, very large pieces. Most of our people have multiple homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of these pieces need to be, I've decided, created in their space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've got a couple of different things going on where I'm going into collectors' homes while they're not there and getting a vacation on the ocean and creating them a 5 foot by 5 foot lobster painting.
Like, yeah, getting the vibe and feeling it, and then
getting a vacation
on the side, of course. Well, to me, like, you were saying that, and I didn't even realize what I was thinking. I'm like, you sound like a rock star. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. She was a rock star. And this is like being a rock star on, like, in the art fair industry, kind of.
It's kind of a very different level of, it's a little bit like, what was that recent Netflix show?
Yeah, Anna.
Inventing Anna. Yeah. My sister has mentioned to me, you're kind of like that. You're going into these people, but I'm honest. I'm not taking advantage of anyone, but here you are, I have people building a house in the Jersey Shore in Margate, New Jersey. They're putting, and they're going to have 6 bedrooms, and they've made it very clear to me that one of those bedrooms is mine. You may think, oh, the world owns her, right? What's going on, Julia?
Right.
So that because they want me to come and do a collection of art once the place is built. And so that will be my room. It's kind of this interesting morphing of collector's relationship and going places and staying in lovely places. It's kind of like this. Look at the beautiful homes our art live in.
Yes,
Douglas,
right.
right? Like I'm always flabbergasted by that.
Yeah.
Well, now hold on a second. Why can't we enjoy those places?
Sure. Well, I mean, we're an extension of that, right? The work is an extension of us.
So it's a couple of cool little new projects, and it's also a thought pattern of maybe eventually taking a couple of shows off and and doing this kind of artist in residency. You've booked a commission with me, and you want me to go to your Park City house and create it on site.
Well, but like what you're describing to me, here's my take on it. When you said like the inventing Anna idea, it's almost like, it's not that you're putting on a fake persona, because it's 100% genuine who you are, and your work is an extension of who you, and all that. But so many people can be like, who am I to think I'm on the same level as my collector? And we can like talk ourselves out of like wanting to push them or guide them into a sale or to suggest something that they might like for their wall. You step into that role and you are like 100% confident in who you are and what you create. It's like, I can do this and I can do that for you. And they fall in love with that.
Absolutely. And really, when you get right down to it, your collectors. Who wouldn't want you to create a piece in their space, right? To go, I mean, like for them, how crazy is that?
And it's almost like they fall in love with the piece that they get to live with. But think about the stories they get to tell people at dinner. Like they get to tell them about the cool artist who was a singer and part of a band, and get to know you and your story.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And then during all of that time, they introduce you to other people. It's a whole
network.
Different whole different network. And, this, you are like your collectors. You is a concept that I always apply to showing up at the shows. You see me setting up and you see me at the show. It's a whole different persona in terms of presentation, right?
Mhm.
What are we doing? What's it called? It's a show. So we should, be approaching the art shows a little bit, maybe as if we're on stage, a little bit as if I am of the same level of you who is the collector, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And you should be able to represent your work in the way you look.
That's
I mean, it's
an
all
attractive thing for collectors to not feel a sense of hesitancy in what we're trying to portray.
exactly, and it takes a whole level of social awkwardness out if you can, if it's just straight direct right off the bat. And when you get right down to it, what are we doing as artists anyway? It's all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can facilitate that form of communication and then hence that form of connection, you're way ahead of the game.
Totally.
You're not only should you be trying to do that with your actual art, but the same thing is true when you're selling it.
True. Absolutely. Julia, this has been a great talk. I really enjoyed spending time with you. I really connect with you on this kind of this zest for life, this kind of like, the choice to be on the upward spiral instead of the downward spiral. So.
Absolutely. I don't know was it Schlitz beer that said, grab all Augusta or something?
Yeah.
Just like they're telling me we got one of these, so let's go. And why wouldn't you want to just live happy and as full as you possibly can? It's really easy.
Yeah, totally.
Just have to brainwash yourself.
Just have to brainwash it. It's gaslighting. You have to gaslight yourself, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Oh, man, this has been a joy. And I think we are going to take you up on that offer. We're going to come visit you out there in the mountains, Julia.
Oh, my God. I would love it. I'm here from right after Rittenhouse until the Rittenhouse, and I'm here all summer. Get your asses out here. Okay. I would love that. I would love it so much.
That's so sweet.
The son moved out about a year ago. I got a sweet spare bedroom with a view of the presidential range. Come on out.
Well, this is probably taking us back into the conversation, but was that a hard transition for you, for him to move up and out? I mean, after you spent many years together?
It was agony. It was the hardest thing, That is the oddest thing about parenting, Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
You throw everything, all your love, all your energy, everything you have into raising this human being and giving them all of your best, just so that they fly out of the nest.
Just so they leave you. They abandon you.
See you later. See you later. No Christmas card, nothing. Right?
I'll be back for the holidays. Bye, Mom.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Well, that's why you have to move to a beautiful place in the mountains, because you want to come back and ski and all that good stuff, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, I got the place.
You got the place. Julie, this has been awesome, and I will see you in a few days.
I can't wait. I look so forward to it. Give Renee a big hug and a kiss until I can give her one myself.
Will do. Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great talk with Julia, Douglas. Thank you, Julia, for sharing your time and your expertise and your wisdom with us. And we really, really enjoyed the talk there. Man, New Hampshire, she's got the opposite end of the country from me. I feel like New Mexico is hard to get to shows. It's like they just ain't nothing up there in the Northeast, is there?
Right. But it was a lot harder when she was in Canada. So, you know what? She's in God's country right now, looking over those mountains. So that was a beautiful background she had as we talked on the calls, on the podcast calls. So I really enjoyed our talk.
Nice. I did too. We all did. Well, thank you, Julia. We've got lots of fun things, exciting things happening. I've got Camille Marchese coming up next. And
I cannot wait to hear that talk. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked to a director. It's nice to have somebody who has the experience that she's had, as well as a new voice coming to a new show. It's interesting to see these directors take on different opportunities and challenges. So lots of fun things to talk to her about. And that's going to take us. Thanks so much for dealing with the echo as I'm in my hipster hotel in Austin, Texas here with the polished concrete and the John Coltrane posters on the wall. So, man, I'm hipstering out here, Douglas.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. All right. Looking forward. We'll be neighbors again at the next show. I'll see you at South Lake in a couple of days here. So we'll see you down there.
Don't count on my help breaking down this time, sir. You just about killed me taking 4 booths down.
Yeah, taking 4 down. Nope, I'm in better shape. I will not even walking with a cane as much, so I'm getting stronger. Nice. Getting strong now. I hear the Rocky theme playing in the background here.
Well, I tried to call you the other day, and we were talking, and you were holed up in this hotel, and you were like huffing and puffing, and I'm like I was like, what is going on in the background? You're like, I'm doing my PT. I'm like, well, why are you taking your phone calls while you're doing your PT?
Because I wanted a break, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I was talking about the Austin motel, and I'm nothing more hipster has happened in Austin, and that's ground zero for lots of hipster activity. But I'm not sure anything more hipster has happened than me walking across the courtyard of this hotel where I am, carrying my mobile podcast studio under my arm.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, buddy. I'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, man. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by the National Association of Independent Artists. The website is naiaartists.org.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. That's zapplication.org. And while you're at it, find us on social media and engage in these conversations.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when we release new episodes.
Oh, and if you like the show, we'd love it if you would give us your 5-star rating and offer up your most creative review on your podcast streaming service. See you next time.